Wait, this is going to be the third video for this lesson, just to break it up into some smaller chunks. What we're going to take a look at is specifically is solving for the x-intercepts in a different way, right? So what we're going to do here, okay, is we're just going to complete the square, and then once we have our equation written in vertex form, we can solve for x. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so first things first, we're going to factor out that 3. Okay, and so we're going to get x squared plus 8x. Okay, and then minus 1 is equal to 0. And remember, this whole equation is going to be equal to 0. Sorry, we don't need 2 equal signs per line either. Don't do that. Okay, 3 times, the z value is going to be 8 divided by 2 squared, which is 4 squared, which is 16. So I'm going to add and subtract 16 here. So we get x squared plus 8x plus 16 minus 16 goes to square bracket minus 1. That has to equal 0. First 3 terms condensed down into a perfect square trinomial. That is x plus 4 squared minus 16 minus 1 is equal to 0. Distribute that 3 back in. We get 3 times x plus 4 minus 16 times 3 should be 48. And then minus 1 is equal to 0. And so we should see 3 times x plus 4 squared minus 49 is equal to 0. Okay, so now comes, that's the completing the square stuff. Now we're going to solve. We're going to solve for x directly, is what this is asking us to do. So we're going to add 49 to both sides. So from here on here, maybe I'll solve now. So this is the new part. This is the point of the lesson, or this part of the lesson, okay? 3 times x plus 4 squared is equal to 49. Divide both sides by 3. We're going to get x plus 4 is equal to 49 by 3, okay? And then if I square root both sides, sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. If I square root both sides, I'm going to have to write the plus minus, because there's 2 answers, 2 x-intercepts. And so I get x plus 4 is equal to plus minus the square root of 49 by 3. Okay, now there's an interesting, well, it's not interesting. The square root can be applied to the numerator and denominator separately. Okay, so what we can get here, I'm just going to shuffle the minus, I'm going to take 4 away. I'm going to get x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus, okay, that's me just moving the 4 over. Plus or minus, this should be my answer. Root 49 by root 3. Oh, we got some more work to do actually. Forgive me. X is going to be negative 4 plus or minus. Square root of 49 is 7. Okay. Over root 3. Now you might think you are done. And in reality, because I didn't specify in the question, you could maybe get away with this, but it's pretty typical to not leave any radicals in the denominator, as you've seen. That's just common practice, okay? So what we need to do is our actual answer here is going to be negative 4 plus or minus 7 root 3 by 3. Okay, so we'd have 2 answers there for that question. Okay, so that's a little tight actually. So what I'm going to do, I'll apologize for the space. I'm going to bring this down here. We're going to do B here. Okay. So what's different about this question? Well, not everything's on one side to start. We've also got a fraction in there. So we're going to deal with one thing at a time here and just get everything onto one side. I like having the leading term, the x squared, be positive. So what I'm going to do is bring everything over to the other side. I'm going to get x squared over 15 minus x by 15 plus 4/5 has to equal 0. Now I'm going to complete the square, but first I have to get rid of, right now we have a 1 over 15th coefficient in front of x squared. So I got to factor that out. So I'm going to get 1 over 15 x squared minus x plus 4/5 is equal to 0. My z value, the thing I'm going to add and subtract, is going to be b divided by 2 squared, which I see as being -1 by 2 squared. Okay, which then turns into 1/4 is the thing I'm going to add and subtract. So I get 1/15 x squared minus x plus 1/4 minus 1/4 plus 4/5 is equal to 0. Okay, the first three should condense down to, this one's a little bit harder, right? So now I'm looking at, if I'll just do this one with you just to connect something. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 1/4 and add to -1. Okay, this should hopefully illustrate the use of the tricks, because that's a little bit tricky to study, and there's no limit to how difficult these factors could be. Okay, and so use the tricks at your disposal. I already told you in a bunch of in the other videos, the two factors that work are one is the number before you square it when you find your z value. -1/2 and -1/2 satisfy both of these conditions. Okay, just make your life a little bit easier and just follow the little tricks. Okay, so I'm going to get -1/15 x squared minus x. No, sorry. This is, what am I doing? I'm factoring this as into that. So we get x minus 1/2 squared minus 1/4 plus 4/5 equals 0. Okay, remember this is just the completing the square process. We still have to solve after this, right? So we get 1/15 times x minus 1/2 squared. 15 times 4 is going to be 60. Okay, so we get -1 over 60 plus 4/5 equals 0. We can condense this. We're going to need to create a common denominator between the 4/5 and 1/60 by going 5 into 60, which would be 12. So I'm going to multiply by 12 over 12. And that has to equal 0. 1/15 x minus 1/2 squared minus 1/60 plus 4 times 12 would be 48 over 60. 0. We get 47. Okay, equals 0. That's your completing the square process. Okay, now we're going to solve. We're going to start shuffling things, right? So we're going to go, okay, 1/15 times x minus 1/2 squared is equal to -47 by 60. Okay, and I'm going to multiply both sides by 15. Now I recognize something. That's a problem at the moment. I'm not even going to bother multiplying 47 by 15, because look what happens if I try to, in the next step, square root both sides. I can't square root a negative number. So the problem here is I'm not going to get any I'm not going to get any real roots here, right? And what does that mean in relation to my graph? Okay, well, if I was trying to graph this thing, as you're going to I should always thinking about what the graph looks like. It means one of two things. Okay, if I can't solve for x, as I can't here because I can't square root a negative number, it means one of two things. It means your parabola is above the x-axis and it opens up, or your parabola is below, and it could be anywhere too, right? It's below and opening down. Not in any of those four situations, the parabola is never going to cross the x-axis. Okay, so how do I realize that from the beginning? Like before I go into this solving process? Well, it's important to pay attention to what your vertex was. So if I wrote down the vertex here, the vertex here is going to be 1/2 and 47 by 60. As well as it's opening up, so it's concave up. So it sounds like the vertex is in one of, like, we're in this top situation. The vertex is above our x-axis and it's opening up, okay? Important for you to make connections between the things that we've done in grade 10 and what we are trying to do now, okay? The other thing we would have done in grade 10, which would have maybe told us right from the very beginning, was the discriminant. It's important for you to be able to like take these things. You don't want, look how much work this was, right? To not get an answer is very frustrating when we could have found out from the very beginning using the b squared minus 4ac, okay, whether or not there were solutions. It's a lot of wasted time in a test situation, okay? So it's important for you to be able to picture, be thinking about as you're going through these questions, be thinking about what this graph looks like, because that's important. I think that's why we have the graph on the same lesson as the actual completing the square algebra, right? It's important for you to be like visually thinking about what that graph's going to look like, where the x-intercepts are, what the y-intercept is, so that at any particular point, you get the sense of whether or not what you're doing or the answer that you're getting towards or got is correct or not. Okay, I have one more question for you to work through. I'll bring it down here. I know it's not a lot of room, sorry. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, same thing. Bring everything over, okay, and we'll try to solve it. So x squared minus 2x minus 44 has to equal 0. Okay, and so what I'm going to do, a value is 1 right off the bat, which is nice. Okay, so I'm going to go b divided by 2. I'm looking for that z value. Squared, which is negative 2 divided by 2 squared, which is negative 1 squared, which is 1. So I get x squared minus 2x plus 1 minus 1. This question is nice because I don't have any square brackets because the a value is 1. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 actually condenses down into x minus 1 squared. That's what this condenses down into. And then you get minus 1 minus 45. That's minus 45 is equal to 0. Okay, and so solve for x now. That's your completing the square done. Look how nice that question was. It's really short. Okay, so now we're going to go x minus 1. We're going to solve. X minus 1 squared is equal to 45. Okay, square root both sides. And don't forget to do the plus minus when you do that. So we get x minus 1 has to equal plus minus the square root of 45. Okay, so x is going to equal, I got to add 1, 1 plus minus the square root of 45. Okay, if I'm thinking about connectivity between things that we've done in the past, okay, I'm specifically thinking about, can I simplify that radical? Okay, can we simplify that radical? Yes, we can. And by that I mean, if you're thinking about 4, 9, 16, your multiplication table, sorry, that's what I'm getting at. I'm I'm looking for, can I rewrite the root of 45 in an easier way, right? Because I don't want to write the root of 45. What I think we can do is write x is going to equal 1 plus or minus the square root of 9 times the square root of 5. Okay, and then I know the square root of 9 is 3 root 5. Oops, root 5 almost. Okay, those are your roots for this particular question. Okay, so anyway, that's a pretty big lesson. I think we're probably going to take a couple days just digesting all of that, making sure that everybody's okay before we get moving on. That's a lot of review of grade 10, but again, very important, okay, for you to have some of those grade 10 skills, okay?